Back here on HQ, presented by Capital One, the NBA Combine officially in the books. So now we look ahead to the draft. Our Kyle Boone dropping his latest mock. We got the Frenchman up top, Alex Sarr. After the buzz from the Combine, it's looking like he is solidifying himself as that #1 overall pick to Atlanta. Zach Risachet.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm getting it right. There we go. Donovan Clingan up to that #3 spot. Reed Shepard at #4. Dalton Knecht cracking the top 5. This full mock will be posted over on CBSSports.com over the next few days, so be on the lookout. Let's bring in Kyle Boone to break down his mock, and we are starting at the top, Kyle, with Alex Sarr still in that #1 spot. It feels like he's been there for a bit. What is the buzz post-Combine around him and that potential fit with Atlanta?
Yeah, post-Combine, I think we're riding Alex Sarr in pencil for now. He's 7 foot tall. I think he's the best defensive big man in this draft. Makes a lot of sense, I think, for the Atlanta Hawks, who surprisingly won the draft lottery in the #1 pick, to go with someone who I think is a very safe prospect. He has great size. He's shown some shooting improvement this past year overseas. For the Atlanta Hawks, I think, you could project Alex Sarr to be someone who's going to be a starter at the center position for a long time. There's some potential for him as a playmaker as well, and obviously defensively, he's been very, very good as just a teenager. So yes, for now, Alex Sarr at #1, coming off of the Combine, didn't do a lot in Chicago, but was there, tested well, measured well, and he is the guy who I think right now is the favorite to go #1 to the Atlanta Hawks.
And he would be the 3rd European-born player to go #1 overall if it does end up that way. Of course, we saw it last year with Wemby. Let's move along to the 2-time national champ Donovan Clingan. He is on the rise up to that #3 spot in your latest mock. Why is he on the rise, Kyle?
Well, he had a great NCAA tournament for UConn. UConn won their 2nd national championship in as many years, and Clingan was arguably the most important piece for that title-winning team. Defensively, he was a monster, just blocks shots at a really high level. He impacts kind of the defensive side of the floor in a way that I think is real and tangible. I think is a top 5 prospect in this class. The fit, I think, with Houston at #3 would be really interesting. But there's kind of some belief coming out of Combine Week, talking with some people in the NBA, that he can develop his shot beyond the 3-point line. And I think that's a real chance for him to grow as a prospect. We talk about what he can be on defense, but offensively, if he's able to kind of extend his shot beyond the 3-point line, obviously he's very efficient inside the arc. But if he's able to add to his game and kind of grow off of what he did at UConn, he's going to end up, I think, producing at a top 3 level in this class.
Clingan up to #3 overall after the Combine. Dalton Knecht, someone who led the SEC in scoring this past season, he cracks the top 5. Kyle, what makes him a potential top 5 pick?
Yeah, this is a little bit high. I'll admit, hands up, this is a little bit aggressive for Dalton Knecht, but the Pistons, I think, need some help. They need a lot of help in a lot of different areas. Knecht, I think, could be getting like the most plug-and-play prospect for them to select at #5. He's a great shooter. He's a great playmaker. He's a great scorer. And the Pistons really struggled shooting the basketball last season. They really struggled, I think, surrounding Cade Cunningham with pieces that are capable enough to run a competent offense. And I think adding playmaking next to Cade Cunningham, adding shooting next to Cade Cunningham should be at the forefront of the Pistons' mind right now. Knecht checks a lot of boxes. He was the best player in the SEC last season. He's very athletic, tested very well at the Combine, so his stock is on the rise. I think will end up being a top 10 pick, and he ends up going #5 to the Pistons. Wouldn't be totally surprising either.
Dalton Knecht cracking the top 5. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 10 pick. But if we look outside of the top 10, Kyle, who is the best talent that is sitting out of the top 10 in your latest mock?
It's Devin Carter for me, from Providence. He was the best player in the Big East last season. And, man, he stood out at the Combine in a way that I was kind of surprised by. He tested very well, actually set an NBA Combine record in the 3/4 court sprint, and was also had a 42-inch standing vertical leap which tied for best among all participants. So, the production that he showed at Providence this last year, the growth that he showed at Providence, not only developing from like a real lockdown defensive perimeter guy at the point of attack, but also someone who can really shoot it at a high level. I think he checks a lot of boxes for someone who can play both ends of the floor at a really high level. The way he carries himself, both on and off the floor, I think is very infectious. And he's got a really good pedigree. His dad was a pro. He's kind of grew up knowing the work ethic and what it takes to be a pro. So I think NBA teams are really excited about him. And coming off of the combine, I think this is a guy who's going to be on the rise and end up going inside the top 10 of this draft.
Someone else's dad who's a pro is Bronny James, and of course he's a very polarizing topic of conversation after the combine. He had a great combine. This is a weaker draft class, but there are some people in the camp that think he should go back for another year in college. Where are you at in the conversation, Kyle? Do you think he should go back for another year in college hoops, or do you think he should stick with it and go through this NBA draft process?
Yeah, look, it sounds like he's going to stay in the NBA draft. Reportedly, he's planning on doing exactly that. I'm not one to advise any player or prospect or coach or agent or whatever to make their own decisions. I think it's up to them and their specific situation. With Bronny, I think his best chance of being an NBA player in the future is probably coming back to school. He averaged 4.8 points, 2.1 assists per game last season, shot 27% from three-point range, and really in a part-time role at USC. He's coming off of a year where, just go back to last summer. He had a cardiac arrest event last summer prior to his first season at the college level. And I think there's some adjustment that had to take place because of that. He had to be cleared. He had a procedure. And so, I believe in Bronny James as a prospect. We have him ranked right now as a top 60 prospect. I think if he stays in the NBA draft, he will be drafted. But I do think his best kind of long-term future as an NBA player would be to come back to play at the college level, to prove himself as a real NBA asset. And I think long-term, that would be best for him. We'll see what he does. He had a really good combine week, but I think probably long-term, coming back to college would be the most beneficial for him.
Yeah, prior to the combine, wasn't ranked at all, and now post-combine, as you mentioned, a top 60 prospect. Kyle Boone joining us here on HQ, walking us through his latest mock that'll be posted on CBSSports.com later this week. And right now there is an article up by Kyle Boone, players that should withdraw from the draft and go back for another year of college basketball. Bronny is on that list, but as Kyle mentioned, Bronny reportedly set on staying in the draft, getting with the odds to select Bronny James. The Lakers with the best odds at plus 160.